evening. I'm Teresa Skubik, and this is Forum Daily for Wednesday, January 22nd. U.S. tariffs could cost the Canadian economy as much as 3.25%. A CIBC report looked at 4 potential scenarios in which President Donald Trump imposes new taxes on Canadian goods. It says that a 20% tariff that excludes commodities would still result in a GDP hit of 3.25%. But the impact would be around 1.35% under a scenario where only a 10% tariff is applied. Industry Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne is suggesting Canada move from defense to offense on U.S. tariff threats.
It's great to be back. Yesterday we were in Washington with Ambassador Hillman. Mary, was important to be at the Capitol as well, to be able to engage with governors and a number of military leaders. We were in that room where everyone was gathered for that moment. But it was also a moment to remind our American friends, as we've been doing for months now, to say, I hope you're happy to see us, by the way, because we're your largest customer. We buy more from you than China, Japan, the UK, and France combined. And despite the fact that you have heard that message probably 100 times now, we still need to repeat it in Washington so that everyone's get it. And I could see governors nodding because they understand, they're in the front line of that. They understand that they won't be tariffed without impact. They cannot be tariffed without consequences. And they cannot be tariffed without costs for the U.S. consumers. So it was important to be there and reminding them that in the golden age, as the president presented it, of America, what's good for America should be good for Canada.
Mr. Champagne says that the U.S. ordering a study on the trade relationship with Canada is an opportunity to put a lot of good things on the table for a discussion. Mr. Trump didn't follow through on his original threat to slap duties on Canada on day one of his administration, instead signing an executive action ordering the study. Premier Danielle Smith says that Alberta will take a wait-and-see approach on U.S. tariffs.
I am more of the view that we have to find a deal from a diplomatic point of view. And I don't know that this particular administration and this particular president responds well to threats, especially empty threats. If he wants more energy security, then you should be talking about how you can provide energy security, not making the conversation about energy security undermined. So that's why I've taken a bit of a different approach. We've been wanting to double our oil and gas production. We want to double the amount of pipeline space. I think that there's a constructive conversation to have there. I think BC has a constructive conversation to have about germanium, which is one of the critical minerals that has been identified by China that they will no longer export to the United States, essential in defense applications. I think Scott Moe in Saskatchewan has a great case to make about uranium. They already provide 20% of the world's uranium, and America is relying on Kazakhstan and Russia for a portion of their supply. And you can go through each province and each territory, and each of us has a value proposition that I think syncs up with America's aspiration to be energy dominant on both the traditional forms of energy as well as critical minerals. So I think we have a position of strength going in, and I think we should be confident going in from that position of strength to be able to provide a North American context. So I may take a bit of a different approach from my counterparts, but I think it's going to be the successful one.
Ms. Smith is the lone premier dismissing talk of retaliatory threats in response to President Trump's threatened tariffs. Other premiers appear to have the same position as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who has repeatedly said that everything is on the table in negotiations. Ontario's Doug Ford fears a trade war is 100% coming. In an interview with the Associated Press yesterday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford accused Mr. Trump of declaring an economic war on Canada. And Mr. Ford is vowing we'll use every tool in our toolbox to defend our economy.
And I've sent a direction to the LCBO, these tariffs come, to clear off every bit of U.S. alcohol off the shelves. Let's start promoting more Ontario-made wines and the vodkas and spirits. That's what we need to do. We're the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. They will feel the pain. I will make sure I communicate this to our other premiers that they should be following suit. But I want to assure you, as the new U.S. administration takes office today, that our government will never stop standing up for Ontario jobs and working for Ontarians, including our rural communities. I promise you as Premier of Ontario that if President Trump's tariffs make retaliation necessary, I will stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest of Team Canada to fight back using every single tool in our toolbox. And it shouldn't have to come to this, folks.
All right, stay tuned. More of today's top national and international headlines up next. U.S. businesses and big tech companies are warning the CRTC that its effort to modernize Canadian content rules could worsen trade relations with the United States. They say the broadcast regulator's measures to implement the Online Streaming Act could lead to retaliation from the U.S. The act requires big streamers to contribute money toward the creation of Canadian content. The streamers are currently challenging that decision in federal court. British Columbia Premier David Eby is asking Canadians to think carefully about spending money in the U.S.
It's a strange time because we've got friends and family and loved ones over the border. The border for so many Canadians has been a marker of certainly of a different country, but not in the way that borders typically separate countries. We've got so many relationships, and it feels very strange to say. But I really do think that for Canadians right now, when you're planning your March break vacations, when you're planning your summer vacations, if the tariff threat is realized, the deliberate economic attack on families in our province, in our country, by the President of the United States, that we should really be thinking carefully about spending our money in that country. And it's a bit heartbreaking to say it, to tell you the truth, because of our relationships back and forth. I don't understand why the president is doing this. I think it's bizarre. It's not a fight we wanted. It's not a fight we signed up for. But I assure every American, and certainly and especially the president, that Canadians will fight. We will stand up and fight, and that includes making decisions about how we spend our money.
He says that Canadians should reconsider traveling to the States or purchasing American products as proposed 25% tariffs loom. BC has set up a group of business, Indigenous, and labor leaders to respond to U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff threats. And a BC First Nations leader is reversing his stance on the Northern Gateway pipeline. Grand Chief Stuart Phillip initially fought against it, but now says that Canada has no choice but to reconsider. Grand Chief Phillip says he is concerned that if Canada doesn't build that kind of infrastructure, the U.S. will.
We are staring into the abyss of uncertainty right now with climate change, the climate crisis, and the American threat. So I would suggest that if we don't build that kind of infrastructure, Trump will. And there will not be any consideration for the environment or the rule of law or anything along those lines. I think that we can do better. I think we need to do better.
Mexico's president says Donald Trump can call it whatever he wants, but it's still the Gulf of Mexico. Mr. Trump signed an executive order renaming the American side of the Gulf as the Gulf of America. But Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says that the entire world will continue to call it the Gulf of Mexico. The two countries also have different names for the river between Texas and Mexico, with Americans calling it the Rio Grande and Mexicans calling it the Rio Bravo. President Trump's administration has directed that all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion staff be put on paid leave, and that agencies develop plans to lay them off. A memo from the Office of Personnel Management follows an executive order Mr. Trump signed ordering a sweeping dismantling of the federal government's diversity and inclusion programs, which could touch on everything from anti-bias training to funding for minority farmers and homeowners. Toronto police say the largest cocaine bust in the city's history has the hallmarks of a notorious Mexican cartel.
In front of me is the culmination of incredible police work and teamwork that resulted in the largest seizure of cocaine in the history of the Toronto Police Service. 835 kilograms of cocaine that is alleged to have the hallmarks of coming from the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. What you see before you has an estimated street value of $83 million. This is the result of Project Castillo, an extensive joint forces investigation into drug importation and trafficking in the Greater Toronto Area.
The investigation dates back to August 2024 and saw police carry out search warrants at alleged stash houses. 4 Canadians are among the 6 arrested so far, while police are searching for another man from Niagara Falls and 2 others from Mexico. Stay with us. Our weekly Caldwell segment is up next. After that, more of today's top national and international headlines. One of the side effects of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau proroguing Parliament is that all bills that were not yet passed have been put on hold. However, Ottawa is still continuing with their changes to the capital gains tax, even though the new tax hasn't been passed into Canadian law and may never be. In a statement, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation accused the Canada Revenue Agency of enforcing undemocratic measure. Joining me now to discuss the tax and its impact is Brendan Caldwell, Director at Caldwell Securities Limited. Brendan, thank you for joining me.
Well, always good to have a discussion, political or otherwise, Teresa.
Now, despite Parliament being prorogued until late March, the Canada Revenue Agency will continue with their proposed changes to the capital gains inclusion rate. Brendan, could you unpack what these changes are for us?
Well, the good news is it doesn't affect the vast majority of Canadians. So when it was first introduced, that's how it was sold to people. In terms of, it doesn't affect them in terms of the tax they file. What the change actually said was that the amount of capital gains tax that needs to be included on a person's tax return would go up if you have gains of more than $250,000 in a given year, or in the case of 2024, between June the 24th and the end of the year. Doesn't that sound like a lot? So in the sense that very few Canadians will have capital gains of more than $250,000 during that 6 and a wee bit month period, it doesn't affect that many people in terms of the filing. But the Canada Revenue Agency has this policy, if there's something's been introduced into Parliament, even if Parliament's dissolved, that they continue to enforce that as though that is going to become the law. I think the Canadian Taxpayers Federation has a point in that the likelihood of this becoming law, given it ever actually made it to the parliamentary floor and was merely tabled at a committee of the House, it seems like a real stretch. So it remains to be seen what will actually happen. But I can see both sides in this, because normally speaking, when something's introduced in the government, it gets passed. And I think that's maybe the reaction that CRA has without possibly thinking it through entirely.
And how will this decision impact taxpayers?
Well, I think the biggest impact, again, it won't affect many people directly, but it's had a huge impact on the economy. In fact, I think the way it's been done has been how would one say it, a cluster foul up of epic proportions, because it was not included in the last budget. The government had felt it would be a real winner to make the Conservatives vote against it, because they saw this as a wedge issue between older Canadians and younger ones. Unfortunately, younger Canadians apparently can do math and realize this actually affect them and their ability to accumulate wealth far more than it'll affect my generation and older. So it has led to a real slowdown in new issues or financing of junior companies. There has been a real impact without a lot of commensurate increased tax revenue. So I think it's the worst of both worlds right now.
And how will a change in our capital gains tax impact investment in Canada?
Well, again, that's really where we're at, in that the if this does eventually go through, I think it will have a very negative impact. Maybe not in dollar terms, although it will be one of the highest capital gains tax rates in the world, both when you compare the marginal tax rate in Canada of north of 50%, 53 odd percent, and then the 2/3 inclusion rate. It's a big number for a capital gain. So it makes it less attractive to invest in Canada for individuals and corporations. But then the perception is everything. The medium is the message. The perception this is a high tax jurisdiction will probably do more than even the math in keeping investors away.
And how can a financial advisor assist someone in this complicated time?
By trying to being a sounding board, by being somewhat objective. I'm not a tax advisor as such, but in conjunction with our clients' tax advisors, for the clients that would have been affected by this tax or may still be affected by this tax, we took measures prior to June 24th to be able to crystallize some of the gains at the then lower rate, which, given we knew these clients were going to have to crystallize the capital gain in calendar 2024, it was a good move, especially because now they won't have to worry about, do I file at the higher rate? Do I not? Do I hope for a refund? Do I not? That problem's been taken off the table. I think, though, where we've probably added even more value is by telling clients not to do anything. Generally speaking, investment decisions made for tax reasons tend to be mistakes. So we've tried to settle down our clients from doing too much, really only in the specific circumstances where it could have, if the tax had gone through, been a real benefit because we knew those gains had to be crystallized. Did we suggest or recommend that clients do anything?
Well, Brendan, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Teresa.
U.S. President Trump has announced a new initiative to bring $500 billion of investments into artificial intelligence infrastructure.
Together, these world-leading technology giants are announcing the formation of Stargate. So put that name down in your books, because I think you're going to hear a lot about it in the future. A new American company that will invest $500 billion at least in AI infrastructure in the United States and very quickly, moving very rapidly, creating over 100,000 American jobs almost immediately.
The joint venture with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank will create the Stargate program, which will start building data centers and the electricity generation needed for AI development in Texas. The White House has put an emphasis on making it easier to build out new electricity generation in anticipation of AI's expansion. The U.S. sees itself in a competitive race against China to develop a technology being adopted by businesses. The CEO of Oracle explained the applications for the investment.
The kind of applications that we're building, to give you an idea, maybe the most charismatic and the one that I think touches us all is electronic health records. Not just maintaining electronic health records, but by looking at electronic health records, understanding the condition of doctors, better understanding the condition of their patients, and being able to provide healthcare plans that are much better than they otherwise would be. A doctor in Indian River Reservation would be able to see how a doctor at Memorial Sloan Kettering would treat the patient, or a doctor at Stanford would treat the patient. We actually provide all of that information, all of that guidance to the doctors who are treating cancer patients or patients with any other kind of disease, made possible by AI.
And OpenAI's Sam Altman used his time at the podium to specifically thank President Trump for making it possible.
I don't have too much to add, but I did want to say I'm thrilled we get to do this in the United States of America. I think this will be the most important project of this era, and as Masa said, for AGI to get built here, to create hundreds of thousands of jobs, to create a new industry centered here. We wouldn't be able to do this without you, Mr. President, and I'm thrilled that we get to. I think it'll be an exciting project. I think we'll be able to do all of the wonderful things that these guys talked about. But the fact that we get to do this in the United States is, I think, wonderful. So thank you very much.
And while speaking to the press at the AI announcement, Donald Trump was questioned about the growing tension among MAGA Republicans over the H-1B visas.
Go ahead.
Mr. President, there's been some debate within your orbit over whether or not to keep or eliminate H-1B visas. What's your position on that? Do you want to keep H-1Bs or do you want to get rid of them?
I like both sides of the argument, but I also like very competent people coming into our country, even if that involves them training and helping other people that may not have the qualifications they do. But I don't want to stop. And I'm not just talking about engineers. I'm talking about people at all levels. We want competent people coming into our country. And HB1, I know the program very well. I use the program. Maitre d's, wine, experts, even waiters, high quality waiters. You got to get the best people.
An H-1B visa is a non-immigrant visa in the United States that allows U.S. companies to employ foreign workers in specialty occupations. The visas are initially issued for a period of 3 years and can be extended to a maximum of 6. Netflix is about to get more expensive for Canadian subscribers. The cost of the streaming giant's cheapest plan with ads will go up by $2 to $7.99 per month. The plan without ads will increase by $2.50 to $18.99, while the premium plan jumps $3 to $23.99. The new prices will take effect immediately for new subscribers, while existing members will see the change on their next bill. A Nevada judge has upheld the murder charge of the only suspect to ever be prosecuted in the 1996 killing of rap icon Tupac Shakur. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis and his lawyer have argued that he never should have been charged with murder because of immunity agreements he says he reached years ago with federal and local authorities. But prosecutors argue that Mr. Davis has no proof of these immunity deals. He has pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder and is set to stand trial in Las Vegas in March. It's a big day many in Thailand's LGBTQ plus community have long been waiting for as couples celebrate a law giving them the same legal rights as married heterosexuals. As it comes into effect on Thursday, Thailand becomes the third place in Asia after Taiwan and Nepal to allow same-sex marriage. The law opens up access to full legal, financial, and medical rights for LGBTQ plus couples. I'm Teresa Skubik, and that'll do it for your look at national and international news for today. Good night, Canada.